Tonight, we pull back the velvet curtain on one of pop music's most enduring mysteries. For nearly 5 decades, fans have danced to the sparkle of ABBA's hits, blissfully unaware that behind those flawless harmonies lay a story of exhaustion, fractured love, and the quiet unraveling of a musical empire. And now, at 78, the man who built the sonic skeleton of every ABBA song you know, Benny Andersson, has finally spoken. In a voice stripped of glamour, free of PR gloss, he's confirmed what so many long suspected, that the end of ABBA wasn't about betrayal or greed, but about something far more human. Over the next few minutes, we're taking you deep inside the rise, the collapse, and the improbable rebirth of a band that didn't just soundtrack an era, they rewrote it. From the smoky corners of a Stockholm childhood to billion-dollar offers turned down in the name of art, this is the untold truth, and once you hear it, you'll never listen to ABBA the same way again. Stay with us, because the real story begins where the music stops. It's a story that begins far from the glitter of sequins and the roar of sold-out arenas, yet every note of ABBA's global triumph was rooted here, in a small working-class corner of Stockholm, where a young boy's hands first wrapped around an accordion. Benny Andersson, born the 16th of December, 1946, in the Vasan district, didn't see music as a ticket to fame. It was a tradition, a lifeline woven through the laughter of family gatherings and the quiet patience of learning melodies by ear. His father, a civil engineer, and his grandfather, a self-taught musician, planted a seed that would grow into a genius for harmony and arrangement. By 10, Benny was playing for school concerts, already displaying a gift not for the flash of performance, but for the subtle control of tone and mood. This wasn't the story of a boy dreaming of stardom. It was the story of a boy dissecting music like a watchmaker studies gears, understanding its machinery so completely he could rebuild it in his own image. And yet, even then, there was an unspoken force pulling him towards something far greater than Sweden's borders. Though no one, least of all Benny, could see the tidal wave about to rise. What happens when a mind built for precision meets a world desperate for melody? The answer began to take shape when, at just 18, Benny walked into the heart of a phenomenon. In 1964, he joined the Hepstars, a Swedish rock group already gathering momentum. But with Benny's arrival, something shifted. His songwriting, catchy yet layered, commercial yet sophisticated, propelled them to the top of Sweden's charts with hits like Sunny Girl and Wedding. His bandmates saw a teenager, but the industry began whispering about a musical brain who seemed to intuitively know how to make a song last in people's memories. Behind the scenes, Benny wasn't just writing, he was studying the mechanics of recording, experimenting with arrangement, and learning how the right chord could change the emotional temperature of an entire room. While other musicians chased applause, Benny chased understanding, and in doing so, he positioned himself as the architect of something still unseen. Little did anyone know, the most important night of his career was just 2 years away, hidden in the hum of a party where fate was about to shake his hand. It happened in 1966, on a night that didn't seem extraordinary at first glance, yet would ignite one of the most important partnerships in pop history. Björn Ulvaeus, a member of the folk-pop group the Hootenanny Singers, shared Benny's fascination with harmony and arrangement. The two were introduced, picked up guitars, and started playing together that very evening. The chemistry was immediate. Benny's deep emotional ear for composition fused perfectly with Björn's sharp, clever lyricism. In the months and years that followed, they wrote for other Swedish artists, experimenting with genre and structure like scientists testing formulas, often hitting on sounds that seemed to transcend the moment. This was not just collaboration. It was the birth of a creative force that would later pull 2 more extraordinary voices into its orbit. And somewhere, in the blur of songwriting sessions and laughter over coffee, they began charting a path toward a group that would rewrite pop music's DNA. The next chapter wasn't just music, it was alchemy. By the early 1970s, the equation was complete. Benny and Björn, plus 2 powerhouse female vocalists, Agnetha Fältskog and anni-frid, Frida Lingstad. Initially performing under the cumbersome name Bjorn and Benny, Agnetha and anni-frid, the group was armed with talent, but still searching for their breakthrough. In 1973, they failed to win the Swedish selection for Eurovision, but failure only sharpened their focus. The following year, they returned with Waterloo, a glam pop juggernaut that exploded across Europe, winning the Eurovision Song Contest and transforming them into instant international stars. Rebranding as ABBA, they became a visual and sonic phenomenon, with Benny quietly steering the ship from behind the piano. He layered harmonies like a painter mixing colors, wove early synthesizers into the arrangements before they were fashionable, and obsessed over emotional resonance as much as technical perfection. Every note was deliberate, every silence intentional. It was here that Benny's true genius emerged, not in being seen, but in making sure the music would never be forgotten. What made ABBA's songs feel like more than pop? Beneath the glitter lay a distinctly Swedish melancholy, a bittersweet undercurrent that made hits like Knowing Me, Knowing You and Fernando resonate across cultures. Benny's arrangements sparkled, but they also carried a shadow, a kind of emotional double exposure where joy and sadness coexisted. He didn't chase trends. He built songs designed to outlive them. In the studio, he was relentless, sometimes spending days perfecting a single harmony, until it felt right in the heart, not just the ear. Audiences danced, sang, and celebrated, often unaware that the melodies lifting them were born from a man who was less interested in fame than in the architecture of feeling. This was Benny's quiet magic, to hide the complexity inside something so simple, millions could sing it after hearing it once. And before we go any further, if you're hooked by the real stories behind music's legends, make sure you subscribe to Rewinding Legends right now, because the truth only gets more surprising from here. And you won't want to miss what's still to come. In public, ABBA was untouchable. In private, the seams were fraying. In 1979, Bjorn and Agnetha's marriage ended, a blow the band tried to keep professional. The music stayed polished, but the emotional atmosphere in the studio began to change. 2 years later, Benny and Frida's relationship collapsed. They had met in 1969. Their romance is much a creative partnership as a personal one, but Benny's perfectionism, so vital in music, left gaps at home. In 1981, he confessed to falling for television producer Mona Nurklet, a truth that ended his marriage to Frida. Though the split was civil, the dynamic of the band was irrevocably altered. Their 1981 album, The Visitors, carried the weight of this emotional frost, songs dripping with unspoken pain and signaling the beginning of the end. The stage lights still burned bright, but behind them, something vital had gone dark. And then, without the drama of a press conference or a farewell tour, ABBA simply stopped. Their last single, Under Attack, released in December 1982, failed to match the impact of their earlier hits. There was no goodbye, no grand finale, just a slow fade into silence. For decades, fans speculated, was it money, ego, creative disputes? The mystery became part of ABBA's legend. Interviews remained vague, their public appearances rare, and politely guarded. In the absence of answers, the myth grew. Until, in November 2024, Benny finally broke the silence. When Benny Andersson finally spoke, it wasn't with scandal, it was with honesty. Sitting down for a rare interview with The Guardian, he said simply, "We were exhausted. Marriages were falling apart. The music was starting to sound unnatural. We needed to stop to preserve ourselves." In April 2025, speaking to Billboard, he went deeper. The final 2 years felt like a job, not a passion. The songs came slower, the energy was gone, and they couldn't keep pretending. For fans, this was both heartbreaking and healing. It wasn't betrayal that ended ABBA, but human fragility. The melancholy that colored their last albums wasn't imagined, it was lived. And now, it had a name. For anni-frid Frida Lingstad, life after ABBA was both regal and tragic. In 1992, she married into European royalty, becoming Princess Royce of Plauen. The fairy tale image was soon clouded by reality. Rigid traditions, public expectations, and the stifling formality of royal life. Then, in 1998, came the greatest loss. Her daughter, Anne-Lise Lottie, died in a car accident at just 30 years old. Grief drove Frida into seclusion near Lake Geneva. Yet in her darkest days, Benny reappeared not as a bandmate, not as a former husband, but as someone who shared a history no one else could understand. In quiet conversations, they found comfort, not in nostalgia, but in recognition of what they had survived. Even without the music, the bond endured. Then, in 2018, the unthinkable happened. ABBA reunited. It began with 2 new songs but grew into ABBA Voyage, a groundbreaking digital concert experience in London. Using motion capture and avatars, the band's 1979 selves performed alongside a live band, selling over 1.3 million tickets from fans in more than 140 countries. Benny, as ever, obsessed over every sonic detail, ensuring authenticity down to the last note. They even turned down a $1 billion offer for a physical tour, choosing to redefine performance on their own terms. Now 78, Benny has spoken openly about how music was always his escape, how he poured his best lines into songs instead of the people who needed to hear them. It wasn't coldness, it was fear. And in admitting that, he has finally offered what ABBA never did: closure. The songs were never polished fantasies. They were the sound of 4 people holding themselves together. And perhaps that's why they still hold us. And there it is, the truth we waited decades to hear, finally spoken by the man who rarely sought the spotlight, yet shaped every note that made ABBA immortal. Benny Andersson's revelations strip away the glitter to reveal the grit, showing us that even the most perfect melodies are born from imperfect lives. In the end, ABBA's legacy isn't just about record sales, sold-out arenas, or even the groundbreaking digital resurrection of ABBA Voyage. It's about survival. How 4 people, bound together by music and torn apart by life, found a way to leave behind something timeless. And maybe that's why, after all these years, their songs still hold us, not because they're polished, but because they're real. Here at Rewinding Legends, we bring you the stories that history tried to bury and the truths hidden beneath the headlines. If this journey moved you, hit that like button, share this with someone who still hums Dancing Queen, and subscribe so you never miss another chapter in music's untold history. Because in the world of legends, the music never really ends. It just waits for us to press play again.